Alright, what's going on, guys? Today we're going to be talking about my 10 favorite manga arcs of all time. As a preface, I just want to say I won't be including stories that don't have clearly defined arcs. So for example, Blam is my second favorite manga of all time. However, it doesn't really have clearly defined arcs. It just kind of feels like one cohesive story, so I didn't include it in the list. Same goes for Steel Ball Run as well. Even though it's a great story and I feel like it's more than deserving to be in the top 10, it feels like one cohesive story for me. It doesn't really feel like individual arcs. I know some of you might disagree with that analysis, but you know, it's my list and that's how I decided to go about it. So without further ado, let's get into it with number 10. Alright, to start things off, number 10 on this list. It's a manga written and illustrated by Takehiko Inoue. And no, I'm not talking about Vagabond. We're talking about Slam Dunk. Now, Slam Dunk is the only sports-themed manga I considered for this list. It's a story about a brash, short-tempered boy named Sakuragi. Now, because he wants to impress a girl that he likes at school, Haruko, he ends up joining the basketball team with literally no experience whatsoever. Now, despite his lack of skill, his tenacious energy and impressive leaping abilities allows him to secure many rebounds, which is a very important facet of the game. Now, he's part of Shohoku High School. Now, in the previous year, they didn't have so much luck. But this year, with him and Rukawa, they've got a chance to make it to the finals. And they do just that. And in the second round, they find themselves matched up against the previous champs, Sanyo High School. Now, this arc is just absolutely incredible, and it's a great way to end the series as well. It's got exciting ups and downs, high moments and low moments, chew on your nail type of plays, and just a very engaging atmosphere. And in typical Inoue style, the game on the court is not the only one being played. That's because each character is going through their own psychological battle in the midst of the game. Sakuragi in particular begins to realize that the game that he picked up to impress Haruko is becoming a part of his identity, and that he in fact actually loves the game. He also comes to the realization that his longtime rival, Rukawa, is someone that he can learn to work with and learn from. And most importantly, it's someone who he can accomplish his shared dream together. Now, for much of the manga, their animosity towards each other created a rift within the team, and thusly inhibited their potential of going further and further. But when their love of basketball overlapped on the court, it blossomed into a beautiful partnership that was unrivaled under the heavens. And it's just not the main characters that get these key pivotal moments. Every single character has their moments. From Sakuragi to Rukawa to Takanori to Haruko to even the Sano players. You get both perspectives in this manga. You feel the trials and tribulations that these characters are going through. And because Inoue has such a keen understanding of the human condition, he's able to convey such realistic circumstances within the manga. Circumstances that, even though you might not play the game yourself, you can relate to. Because we've all had that competitive spirit once before in our lives. And for a sports manga, I think this is the peak of the peak. I've never read a sports manga that made me feel this way, and I'm really proud to put this at number 10 on the list. So the 9th best manga arc that I got in this list comes from Gantz, and that's going to be the Nurahion arc, otherwise known as the Osaka arc. Now, Gantz is such a wild manga that it's really hard to put into words. Basically, as a brief reminder, you die in the real world, get sent to a room in Japan, and not just any room in Japan, a room with other people that died, get a mission from some weird black ball to kill an alien, go kill that alien, and then receive some points as a result of that. And if you happen to get 100 points in the process, you can either revive someone, free yourself back into the real world again, or get a stronger weapon and continue to fight aliens. It's pretty ludicrous, it's pretty insane, but it's also pretty awesome. And what's more, it continually ups the stakes on its own level of craziness by each arc. And let me tell you something, I'm all for it. Now, the Nurahion arc is really up there in terms of craziness. It starts off with some vampires targeting the Gantz team, and ending up inside of the Gantz room themselves. The Tokyo team goes to Osaka where they meet the Osaka team. And let's just say they're a little bit liberal in their killing methods. Not only do they brutalize the aliens that they're killing, they also tend to rape them as well. They almost seem to derive some kind of sick pleasure from killing the aliens and making them suffer. But eventually though, the sadistic Osaka team meets their match, as the alien threat is truly beyond the scope of their skills and weaponry. Now, the monster designs in this arc are just absolutely otherworldly. And the artwork in general is really top-notch stuff. It's some of the best arc I've ever seen in a manga. And each battle feels like it has a certain level of danger. I remember reading this arc and not knowing who was going to die next. And that's the great thing about Gantz, is that they will kill main characters on a regular basis. So it's not like you have your core collection of main characters that are always safe. They always got that plot armor on them. No, anyone's game in this manga. It doesn't matter who they are, they might die literally at any moment. And one of the great things about this arc as well is that there are literally chapters that have almost no dialogue whatsoever. Yet you can't help to stare at every page for minutes on end, just because the artwork is so enthralling and beautiful and engaging. Now Gantz, even from the beginning, gave you a sense of hopelessness in the missions. It always made you feel like the danger was insurmountable. But the Osaka arc makes it feel so palpable that it's almost a little bit disturbing in a way. Disturbing in a good way, though. You never really feel comfortable when you're reading the manga. You always feel like something bad is lurking behind the corner. And you never know when there's going to be a gruesome monster that's going to come out and kill one of the members. It's just such an exciting arc, and it really highlights all the great aspects that I love about Gantz, and it's well deserving of the 9th spot on this list. Now for number 8, we got an arc from Kingdom, that being the Western Zhao invasion arc. Kingdom is a story that takes place during the Warring States period of ancient China, centering on the journey between an unknown boy, Xin, and a young king, Aisei, as they try to change the kingdom's course of history through violence and blood, in hope of unifying all of China. Now the Western Zhao invasion arc is the 18th story arc in the series, and is by far the longest one at 147 chapters in length. Now with the capture of Kokuyo in the previous arc, Qin aims to expand further into Zhao by setting their sights on the pivotal city of Gyou, which resides deep within the Zhao lands. To accomplish this feat, however, Qin's supply lines are pushed to their absolute limits, as it becomes apparent that failure will result in total annihilation. However, through Shohei and Osen's clever tactics, Zhao was put on their back foots from the very beginning of the conflict, and it was thusly a literal race against time. Which side would run out of food first? The Qin army or the city of Gyou? Now this arc has everything you want from a war arc. Qin pits 3 of its best generals, General Kanki, Yotamwa, and Osen, against Riboku's intellectual and strategical might. The growth and development of Qin's 3 young aspiring generals, Shin, Moten, and Ohan, is absolutely incredible. They all have their own shining moments. Moten is temporarily raised up to the rank of a general. Ohan impresses General Ako and the people around him, and Shin is able to take down several generals in the process. Furthermore, the strategic aspects of the battles themselves are enthralling, and are explained in a clear and concise way. It literally feels like you're on the battlefield yourself. You know the positionings of the troops, you know the psychology of the men that are around you. And in that way, it makes you feel like you're almost a part of the manga. This arc also serves as the conclusion for Shin's rivalry with Hoken, a warrior that has incredible strength, with lightning-fast reflexes. Now, one of the most surprisingly good aspects of this arc is how the Qin army rations its food and plans out its resulting battles because of that. In effect, they have a deadline for this war, because if they run out of food before they conquer Gyou, then they're all gonna starve to death. And Riboku, being keenly aware of this fact, revolves his entire strategy around stalling the Qin army so that they don't make significant progress, and in effect, they fall into the starvation problem. But of course, Qin doesn't die out here, and the way that Osen circumvents this dilemma is quite unique and devious. It's a literal chess match being played out with blood and people's lives. It's just one of the greatest arcs I've ever read, and you would think at 147 chapters that it might drag on a bit, but I never found any period to be boring or tedious. It kept me engaged the entire time. And there's even one great moment by Hekibro as well. You know, for much of the manga, he's always kind of been that guy that rises up through the ranks, becomes a general, but doesn't really do anything noteworthy. Well, he does something really noteworthy in this arc. In fact, he has one of the best kills by any of the Qin generals, so for that, yeah, it's definitely up there, guys. Alright, for my 7th best arc, I have Chapter Black from Yu Yu Hakusho. Now, Chapter Black turns the entire Yu Yu Hakusho universe on its head. In the preceding arcs, Yusuke typically found himself against various demons who had bad intentions. Demons, after all, are the bad guys, and humans are the good guys. End of story, right? Well, not quite. In Chapter Black, a previous spirit detective, Sensui, discovers that humans are not the bastions of goodness. In fact, in some circumstances, humans could be more brutal and sadistic than the monsters themselves. A reality that Sensui experienced firsthand when he went to Sakyo's estate and saw an inhuman cesspool of evil. All atrocities being perpetrated by humans. And as you might imagine, his worldview was completely flipped on its head. So because of this, he pivoted his position and decided to destroy all humans by unleashing monsters into the world. Now the reason that he justified this is that he figured, hey, monsters are the lesser of two evils, right? And so they're more deserving of life than the humans that brutalize them. Now this kind of sounds like a typical villain plot, right? A guy that has one bad experience and he's just evil for the sake of being evil. But when your mangaka is Togashi, there's much more to the story than that. And even though Sensui was carrying out this plan of mass murder and felt justified in his actions by what he witnessed, at the end of the day, he still couldn't reconcile the immoral actions that he would have to take in carrying out this mass slaughter. He therefore developed 7 different personalities to disassociate himself from the guilt of his actions. And this is really where the beauty of the arc unfolds onto the pages. Because you can see how Sensui's sense of justice, his unwavering thought that good and evil were 2 separate categories, that there were no gray areas, led him to a decision that he rationalized as sensible and logical in his head, but was completely insane and catastrophic from the outside. And in fact, his pursuit of justice was so ardent that he would go to any lengths, that he would become evil itself, just to achieve his sense of justice, his sense of goodness. And these philosophical musings and the action and the way that the arc is just written in general just makes it so enthralling and so good. And just a little insider piece of information, this won't be the last time that Togashi has an arc on this list. Vinland Saga's War arc is just a top-notch arc on so many levels. You have great battles between Thorfinn and Thorkel. You got the conniving Askeladd employing many of his clever tactics, like carrying a boat across the land. And you've got some of the most iconic scenes within the manga all happening within these brief 54 chapters. For example, you got the death of Thors, you got the battle between Thorfinn and Thorkel, and you got the death of the king by Askeladd's sword. The badassery in this arc is just next level from beginning to finish. There's never really a moment that lets you down, it's just constant excitement. Plus, you learn many important historical details about the Vikings' time, like the fact that the Amanita muscaria mushroom was used by the Vikings to send them into a berserker rage. A rage that would increase their strength and endurance by leaps and bounds. Now, Thorfinn's personality in this arc can only be described as a brute. He will go to any lengths to attain his vengeance for his father. And so he voluntarily helps out Askeladd in brutalizing many people so that he can eventually kill him in the future. And when he has that opportunity snatched away from him by Canute, it absolutely breaks him, leading to a crucial transformation in the next arc. Now, while the farming arc is definitely an inspiring and exciting arc, the war arc just comes out ahead for me, because I love that dynamic between Askeladd and Thorfinn, a dynamic that is much like father and son. Although Thorfinn doesn't know that at the time, but in a lot of ways, Askeladd gives him the necessary skills to take that next step forward in his maturation. And that's why Vinland Saga The War Arc is number 6 on this list. Now, for the next one, let's be honest guys and gals, every arc in Berserk deserves to be in the top 10. But I limited myself to my favorite 2 for this list. I wanted to have a little bit of variety. And at the number 5 spots, I've got the Lost Children's chapters. Although not officially an arc, this short segment offers some of the most engaging moments in the entire Berserk tale. Coming on the heels of the Golden Age arc in the Eclipse, things for Guts have spiraled into absolute darkness and despair. He spent 2 years roaming from town to town killing any apostles that got in his way. Eventually though, he comes across a girl named Jill that takes him to a village that is being attacked by elves. The head elf, Rosine, is Jill's childhood friend, and ends up being Guts' main rival in this arc. Now this arc features a dichotomy between fairy tale whimsy and abhorrent violence. Jill and Rosine are the recipients of abusive fathers, who treat them like absolute garbage. Because of this, Rosine longed for a fictional paradise, an escape from all the torment and pain. She wanted it so badly, in fact, that she sacrificed her own parents to become a pseudo-elf/apostle, one who had an insatiable urge to transform children into insect-like creatures. Insect-like creatures that would kill and attack each other in a pretend war game. It's pretty brutal. And this is a prime example of how the path towards hell is paved with good intentions. She wanted a veritable Garden of Eden, a place that she could call her own. But in the end, it ended up costing a lot of children and adults their lives. And the climactic battle between Guts and Rosine is one of the best apostle battles in the manga. In fact, I think it's in the top 3 for the best fights in the entire Berserk series. It truly pushes Guts to his absolute limits. Speaking of which, Guts' viciousness is truly terrifying in this arc. I mean, he's become so jaded since the eclipse that when he's fighting the apostles, he actually seems more fiendish and evil than they are. And this obviously creates a strain on his psyche. A strain that will eventually cut things asunder, and create 2 opposing forces that are at odds with each other for the rest of the manga. So at the number 4 spot, we've got the farming arc from Vagabond. For much of the Vagabond story, Musashi was a brash, inconsiderate man who was hell-bent on becoming unrivaled under the heavens. He used any means possible to attain the zenith of strength, and this path was marked by blood and countless deaths. But during the farming arc, he goes through a metamorphosis, much like a seed does in becoming a rice paddy. First and foremost, much like a seed, Musashi has to metaphorically die to cultivate himself into a person with a positive value system. This happened by relinquishing his tough facade and embracing the natural flow of the universe. Much like water, he needed to be flexible. He needed to be able to change himself depending on the circumstances, and take what life gave him rather than forcing it. This meant that the internal demon that he created to draw strength upon would have to be reined in so that he could become free. Destruction, after all, is very easy. One only needs a moment of rage to do so. However, to grow oneself, it requires patience and constant hard work, much like tilling the fields. Now, the starvation of the village is a nice metaphor for Musashi's internal psychology, because you see, Musashi really hasn't developed himself as a person. He has neglected several vital elements. He is barren like the field itself, and so he needs to plant that field. He needs to watch it grow, but he can't do it by himself. He needs to recognize that he is just not a one-man crew, that there are other people that have knowledge that he does not possess, knowledge and wisdom that is vital to becoming a more complete person. And so, in many ways, this is the first arc in which Musashi actually becomes strong. Sure, he's always been physically strong, but when his constitution and his psychology become positive, he begins to see the universe for what it's meant to be seen as. And this is when he takes a massive leap as a person and as a samurai. And that's why it's number 4 on this list. At the number 4 spot, we've got the York New arc from Hunter x Hunter. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a sucker for any arc that dedicates a significant amount of time to the Phantom Troop, otherwise known as the Spiders. Now, the group of 13 spiders focuses its efforts on stealing and killing. And let's be honest, they're very good at it. When they hear the underground auction in York New City, they waste no time in devising a plan to steal all the goods for themselves. But here's the thing, because of their genocide of the Kurta clan, Kurapika is going to use all his resources that he has at his disposal to put an end to their violence. Now, this arc plays out much like a mafia movie. You've got the Phantom Troop doing as they please to acquire what they want. You've got a rat within the organization, i.e. Hisoka, who is working with the enemy for his own self-interest, and you've got the death of many members. Speaking of which, Kurapika's battle with Uvo is just awesome on so many levels. Although Uvo is an absolute unit with incredible strength, Kurapika's conjuring absolutely neutralizes him and leaves him useless. And that's the great thing about Togashi's writing. He's so creative with his implementation of Nen abilities. And because of this, it's hard for the reader to predict what's going to happen next, leaving you surprised time and time again. In addition, this arc features one of my favorite fights in the entire series, that being the one between Chrollo and the 2 Elder Zoldyks. Not only does Chrollo defend well against their powerful attacks, but he also tries to steal their abilities in the process. I mean, my god, what a Chad. And I think the York New arc also benefits from having the 4 main characters play a pivotal role in this arc. It's always a pleasure to see the main 4 cast members having some sort of pivotal role within the arc. And all in all, I just love the dark and gritty vibe. Plus, the ending is completely unexpected and hilarious, which really proves that Togashi is a master at subverting expectations. Alright, so at the number 2 spot, we've got our second kingdom arc, that being the Coalition Invasion. Now this arc gathers 5 kingdoms together, Zhao, Wei, Chu, Han, and Yan, and pits them up against the Qin army in hopes of wiping Qin off of the map. This arc features all the best generals from each kingdom. So to defend against them, Qin has to roll out Mobu, Mogo, Kanki, Osin, To, and Dukyo. Not to mention the aspiring generals of Shin, Ohan, and Moten. And opposing them is the Coalition Army. We got Riboku, Keisha, and Hoken from Zhao, Seika from Han, Gohomei from Wei, Ordo from Yan, and Rinbu, Kanmei, and Karen from Chu. Speaking of Karen, this woman probably has the most badass moments in the entire conflict. She brings elephants to the battlefield to throw at the To army. She makes a beeline for Mobu and tries to have him assassinated during his fight with Kanmei, and she nearly takes Kankoku Pass for herself by sending off a detachment force that infiltrates the castle walls. I mean, let's be honest, if it wasn't for Osin's quick and decisive actions, she would have taken down Qin all by herself. Now the battles in this arc are just truly legendary, and they come at you one after another. To has an awesome moment taking out Rinbu, Shin takes out Zhao General Mangoku, and Mobu proves himself the strongest in all of China by taking out Kanmei. But despite all these great battles, the one who really steals the show is Kanki. Because this Chad of Chads decides to descend down from the wall, wades through the Wei and Han forces en route of taking down the Han commander-in-chief. I mean, literally, he has a detachment force of only about 400 people, going up against a combined army of over 100,000. It's absolutely insane and ludicrous, but he pulls it off in style, as only he can. And his plan works without a hitch. He takes down Seika and delivers a huge blow to the Coalition army. And finally, we have Riboku, the man that makes a beeline for the capital itself. And so, to stop his progress, King Aisei journeys to the city of Sai to rouse up the citizens to fight for the kingdom. It's a desperate battle that leaves you on the edge of your seat, and the surprise twist at the end is truly unbelievable. Every major character has their moments in this arc. Not only that, it lays the seeds for pretty much all the preceding arcs. Because once you start to learn of all the major generals from the other lands, you start to understand their process, their mindsets. You get to learn that Gohomei is adept at using siege towers, that Seika likes to use poisons, that the Chu army is built upon strength and endurance, and that Ordo is kind of a bit of a buffoon. But it just lays all those seeds for you so that in the future, you can empathize with these various commanders and generals. So even though you're rooting for the Qin side and unifying all of China, you can sort of understand the perspective of the other generals. It humanizes them in a lot of ways. And I mean, this arc is just so jam-packed, guys. It's truly incredible what the mangaka was able to pull off with this arc. I mean, it's one of those arcs that I just want to read time and time again. It's just so exciting. And it's more than deserving to be number 2 on this list. Alright, so before we reveal my number 1 manga arc, I want to go through a couple of the contenders that just missed out on the list. Now, it was a very tough process of deciding which arcs I should put in the top 10 and which I should leave out, because so many of them are great in their own ways, but here are a couple that just missed out for me. We got Berserk's Falcon of the Millennium Empire, Hunter x Hunter's Chimera Ants, Yu Yu Hakusho's The Dark Tournament, Kingdom's Kokuyo Campaign, and Steel Ball Run. So with that said, guys, as for the number 1 manga arc on my list, I got Berserk's Golden Age. I mean, is it any surprise? This arc has literally everything you want. It has a fantastic backstory of Guts' upbringing. An upbringing that is absolutely harsh and brutal. We see how he gets raped at a very young age and how it affects him going forward in the future. He meets the Band of the Hawk, Griffith and Casca, learns to be a mercenary, and actually finds it's rather enjoyable. Finds that it gives his life some purpose. Berserk's Golden Age is truly an unbelievable arc. There are great battles, like Guts' fight against Bazuzo, Griffith, Zod, and Baskan. And the artwork is truly on another level. I mean, there are so many panels that you just have to stare at for hours on end because they're just so beautiful. But what really makes this arc special is the characters themselves. Specifically Guts, Griffith, and Casca. Guts and Casca start off on a rough note, literally bickering at each other over the slightest disagreements. Casca, after all, trusts and respects Griffith with all her heart. However, when Griffith starts to favor Guts, she feels jealous and resentful towards him. This creates a tenuous relationship between the two that is eventually resolved through an act of love. Now, Miura is well known for drawing full-page spreads of bloody conflicts, but in this short segment between Guts and Casca, he draws some of the most beautiful sequences of events that you'll ever see in your life. And this is really what makes Miura great, is that he has that contrast between beauty and torment, darkness and light, levity and abhorrence, and he can change his dynamic literally on a dime, which makes it all the more jarring. Now moving on, let's talk about Guts and Griffith's quote-unquote friendship. Now they start off as bitter rivals who are at odds with one another, but over time, they learn to be trusted comrades who will fight to the death for each other. Unfortunately, what Guts thought was friendship was merely exploitation. Griffith used Guts for his own ends. In fact, in his mind, Guts belonged to him like a tool. So when Guts defeated him in battle, Griffith was incapable of handling it, and so was mentally broken because of it. This led to an unfortunate series of events that ripped his dream away from him, and landed him inside the Midland torture chambers. And never before have I read a manga that took so much away from a single character. And the way that Miura built him up, a man with superior intellect, skill, and charm, to eventually be reduced to a useless hunk of a man was jarring and surprising. You know, it's very easy to hate on Griffith in the early parts of the manga because he's too perfect in a way. He's beautiful and a leader and just has everything that you would ever want. Yet you feel bad for him at the end of the day. When you see him getting tortured, you're like, my God, it takes your breath away. But then Miura does the ultimate reversal once again. Because you start off hating him, then you feel really bad for him, and then you hate him once again. And in fact, you actually hate him more than you did the first time. Because when he initiates the eclipse with his Bailet, my God, does that just absolutely blow your mind. I mean, the eclipse has got to be the single most shocking moment ever written in any manga. I mean, ever. In fact, I would say it's the most stunning moment in literature, period. After reading it, it literally changes you as a person. It breaks you in a lot of ways. And it makes you wonder how any one person could write something so tragic, yet so enthralling at the same time. There's so many moments that you want to look away, yet at the same time you can't. It's an event upon which the entire Berserk universe is built upon, and it is absolutely unparalleled. No event will ever come close to the eclipse. And for that, and so many other reasons, the Golden Age arc is my #1 arc on this list. So that's it, guys. That's my list. As a reminder, we got the Sano arc at number 10, the Neurohion arc at number 9, the Western Jiao invasion arc at number 8, Chapter Black at number 7, the War arc at number 6, Lost Children at 5, Farming arc at 4, York New at 3, Coalition Invasion at 2, and the Golden Age at number 1. Let me know what you thought of this video, please subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you guys on the flip side.